The navigation console beeped 3 times. Captain Vrelix of the hunting clan Moradis felt his secondary hearts quicken with anticipation. His clawed fingers danced across the holographic display, confirming what his predatory instincts already screamed at him. A lone escape pod, drifting through the outer reaches like a wounded gazelle separated from its herd. Life signs? He growled, his mandibles clicking with barely contained excitement. One juvenile, his tactical officer, Gren, replied. Minimal mass. No defensive capabilities detected. The pod appears damaged, sir. Propulsion offline. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Vrelix had been hunting for 3 cycles now, ever since the Galactic Council had placed sanctions on the Moradis clan for their, quote, aggressive expansion policies, unquote. Bureaucratic nonsense. His people were warriors. Conquerors. What good was strength if you didn't use it? But sanctions meant fewer targets, fewer opportunities to prove his worth to the clan elders. This little morsel floating in the void. This was a gift from the war gods themselves. Bring us alongside, he ordered. Prepare the boarding clamps. I want that pod secured in 5 minutes. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Say what you would about the Moradis, they knew how to capture prey. Their ship, the Bloodfang, was designed for exactly this kind of work. Sleek, fast, bristling with enough weaponry to make even a council dreadnought think twice. Overkill for one tiny escape pod? Perhaps. But Vrelix hadn't survived 40 years of combat by taking chances. The magnetic clamps engaged with a satisfying thunk. Through the view screen, Vrelix could see the pod now, a battered cylinder of metal and composite materials, scarred by what looked like plasma fire. Someone had attacked this vessel before it escaped. Someone had almost finished the job. Almost. Life signs stable, Gren confirmed. Species identification is odd, sir. The database is showing human. Vrelix's laugh was like rocks grinding together. Human? One of those soft, squishy things from the Sol system? The ones who eat plants and build hospitals instead of armories. He stood from his command throne, all 7 feet of scaled muscle and warrior pride. This will be entertaining. Have the youngling brought to holding bay 3. I want to see what passes for courage in that pathetic species. 20 minutes later, Vrelix stood before the holding cell, arms crossed, studying his prize. The human child, a female by the look of it, couldn't have been more than 10 standard years old. She had that ridiculous hair that humans grew on their heads, dark and tangled, falling past her shoulders. Her clothes were torn, revealing several cuts and bruises. She should have been terrified. She should have been crying, begging, doing whatever it was that prey did when cornered. Instead, she glared at him with eyes the color of Earth's oceans and said, "My name is Kira Holt. My dad is Commander Marcus Holt of the Terran Defense Fleet. When he finds you, you're gonna wish you'd never hatched." Oh, this was delightful. Your father, Vrelix said slowly, enjoying every syllable. We'll have to find you first, small thing. And by the time he does, if he does, you will have learned what it means to be prey in a universe of predators. Kira's jaw set in a way that would have been impressive if it wasn't so pointless. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. Yeah, well, you should be afraid of Brutus. Vrelix tilted his head, his translator implant working overtime. Brutus? Is this some human deity? Some protector's spirit you pray to? Nope. Kira moved to the side of the cell, revealing a large, reinforced carrier that Vrelix hadn't noticed before. How had his crew missed that during the pod extraction? Brutus is my best friend. And you just woke him up from his nap. He gets really cranky when people interrupt his sleep. The carrier shook. Something inside it growled, low and guttural, a sound that made Vrelix's instincts suddenly sit up and pay attention. That wasn't the sound of prey. That was the sound of something else entirely. What? Vrelix said carefully, is in that container. Kira smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Want me to show you? Before Vrelix could answer, before his tactical training could kick in and tell him that this was wrong, all wrong, the carrier's door burst open with a screech of tortured metal. What emerged made Captain Vrelix, veteran of 40 years of combat, conqueror of 17 systems, terror of the outer reaches, take an involuntary step backward. The creature was perhaps 3 feet long, built low to the ground like a biological battering ram. Its fur was black and white, striped in a pattern that somehow seemed designed to warn potential threats. But it was the face that stopped Vrelix's breath. Small, beady eyes that held nothing but pure, concentrated violence. Jaws that looked capable of crushing bone. And an expression that could only be described as offended rage at the highest possible level. That, Kira said cheerfully, is a honey badger. From Earth. You've heard of Earth, right? The honey badger, Brutus, looked at Vrelix. Looked at the energy bars of the holding cell. Looked back at Vrelix. Then it did something that would haunt the captain's nightmares for the rest of his considerably shortened life. That IT smiled. The first thing Brutus did was attack the holding cell's energy barrier. Not probe it cautiously, not test it with a careful paw, but launch himself at it with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for orbital bombardments. The barrier sparked, flickered, and died with a pathetic whimper. Apparently, more of this technology was designed to contain civilized prisoners who respected the fundamental laws of physics and self-preservation. Honey badgers, as Vrelix was rapidly learning, gave exactly zero consideration to either. Security to holding Bay 3. Vrelix barked into his comm unit, backing toward the door. Immediate response required. What's the threat level, sir? Came the reply. How did you quantify this? How did you explain to your crew that a creature roughly the size of a food preparation unit was currently advancing on you with murder in its eyes? Maximum, Vrelix said. Bring pulse weapons. Bring everything. Brutus made a sound that couldn't be described as anything other than a war cry. It was part growl, part shriek, part something that suggested this animal had evolved specifically to make other creatures regret their life choices. Then he charged. Vrelix was fast. He'd trained for decades in close-quarters combat. He'd fought opponents twice his size and walked away victorious. None of that mattered. Brutus hit his leg with the force of a kinetic missile, claws digging through his combat armor like it was decorative tissue paper. Pain exploded through Vrelix's nervous system, the kind of pain he hadn't felt since his initiation trials as a youngling. Get it off, he roared, trying to shake his leg. Get it off me. Brutus held on like he'd been welded there. Those jaws, those horrible, efficient jaws, found purchase on Vrelix's ankle joint and squeezed. Something crunched. Vrelix screamed, a sound no captain should ever make in front of subordinates, and crashed to the floor. Through his pain-addled vision, he saw Kira calmly walk out of the now barrier-free cell. She stepped over him like he was a piece of furniture, reached down, and scratched Brutus behind his ears. The demon spawn paused in its systematic destruction of Vrelix's leg long enough to make a pleased, chittering sound. Good boy, Kira said. But we need to save some for later. Come on. Brutus released Vrelix's leg with obvious reluctance and trotted after the girl like an obedient pet. Which was insane. That thing wasn't a pet. That thing was a war crime with fur. The security team arrived 30 seconds later, pulse rifles charged and ready. They found their captain on the floor, purple blood pooling around his shredded leg, pointing weakly down the corridor. Stop them, he gasped. Stop the human and her demon. What followed would later be described in the official incident report as a complete tactical failure. The unofficial version, shared in hushed whispers in bars across 3 sectors, was more accurate. It was a massacre. Brutus encountered the first security officer, a heavy weapons specialist named Kront, at Junction 7. Kront had his pulse cannon aimed and ready. He never got the chance to fire. The honey badger went low, then high, then somehow sideways in defiance of every law of momentum Kront had ever learned. Claws found the weak points in Kront's armor, the spaces between plates that designers never thought needed protection because what kind of attacker was small enough to exploit them? This kind, apparently. Kront went down screaming. Brutus moved on without slowing. The second team tried to trap him in a crossfire at the armory junction. Brutus ran straight up the wall, across the ceiling, and dropped onto the team leader's head. The leader's helmet crumpled like cheap foil. His teammates opened fire, hitting each other in the chaos. Not a single shot touched the honey badger. By the time the third team arrived, word had spread. These weren't just soldiers anymore. These were terrified beings who'd signed up to fight other warriors, not whatever fresh nightmare humanity had decided to weaponize. They hung back, weapons raised but fingers hesitant on triggers. Kira walked past them. Nobody stopped her. Brutus followed at her heels, his black and white fur now decorated with streaks of purple and green blood from a dozen different species. He looked pleased with himself. Where's the bridge? Kira asked one of the soldiers, a young female who'd pressed herself against the wall. The soldier pointed wordlessly. Thanks, Kira said, and kept walking. 3 minutes later, she stood on the bridge of the Blood Fong, surrounded by the command crew. Every weapon on the ship was pointed at her. Brutus sat at her feet, cleaning his claws with his tongue, utterly unconcerned. Hi, Kira said brightly. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to send a message to my dad's ship. You're going to tell them exactly where you are. Then you're going to sit here very quietly while we wait for them to arrive. If anyone tries anything at all, I let Brutus off his leash again. Trust me, he's still got energy. Honey badgers can fight for hours. Grin, the tactical officer, made the mistake of laughing. You think we're afraid of one small animal? We are warriors of the Morthis clan. We've conquered systems. We've destroyed fleets. Kira looked at him with an expression of profound pity. You know what honey badgers do on Earth? They break into beehives and eat the larvae while thousands of bees are stinging them. They fight off lions. They've been documented attacking buffalo for fun. Brutus once fought a rattlesnake, got bitten, took a nap to sleep off the venom, then woke up and finished eating the snake. She paused. Your armor didn't even slow him down. Want to test how long you'd last without it? The bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship's systems and Brutus's contented grooming sounds. Grin sent the message. When the Terran defense fleet arrived 6 hours later, they found the most notorious pirate vessel in the sector floating dead in space. Engines offline, weapons cold. The crew was huddled in the mess hall, guarded by a 10-year-old girl and an animal that weighed maybe 30 pounds. Commander Marcus Holt stood in the docking bay, staring at his daughter. Kira, are you okay? Did they hurt you? I'm fine, Dad, Kira said, hugging him. Brutus protected me. Marcus looked at the honey badger, who looked back with those dead, soulless eyes that promised violence at the slightest provocation. I see that. Remind me to double his treat rations. As the more of this crew was led away in restraints, Captain Vrelix, limping badly, stopped in front of Kira. What are you? He asked. What kind of species keeps creatures like that as companions? Kira grinned. We're humans. We looked at the most dangerous, most fearless, most absolutely unhinged animals on our planet and said, hey, let's be friends. You probably should have researched us better before you grabbed my pod. Vrelix said nothing. What could you say? He'd learned his lesson. The entire galaxy would learn it soon enough. Humans didn't just survive in a universe of predators. They adopted the predators, trained them, loved them, and turned them into the most terrifying allies imaginable. And honey badgers? Honey badgers didn't care about your armor, your weapons, or your reputation. They just cared about protecting their humans. The Morthis clan never hunted in the outer reaches again. So what did you think? Did this story surprise you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this sci-fi story, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing science fiction stories every week. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.